Lance, welcome to the Unclouded Podcast. Second time back. Last one we did was in 2022.
Yeah,
And
lots happened since then.
yeah.
World's still crazy.
Yeah, everything, yeah, for sure.
So-
And the biggest thing is I was telling Fran was that the reason why, we're in the Gym Juice studio now, but like it's so easy to be able to like production now versus in 22 just in those 3 years the technology advances that have happened is obviously have make this much easier just ready for me to post. But one thing that I just really wanted to ask you, because in 3 years I always tell people that people overestimate and underestimate what can happen in a year, let
Yeah.
alone in a few years. So since 2022, what has changed in your life and in your business?
I mean, a lot. Like massive amounts of change in the real estate business. In fact, since then, the industry, National Association of Realtors and Department of Justice have massively changed how real estate agents get paid and negotiate how they get paid. Like the biggest change I've seen in 25 years, and it's not over yet. So that's like you have to be ready for stuff like that. Like they basically said where for all intents and purposes, where for 20 years where sellers were paying a buyer agent to bring a buyer to a property, they basically said, nope, that's not legal anymore. And you have to negotiate those fees directly with your buyer before you start working with your buyer and showing them homes. So for agents that have been in the business, like this was a major disruptor. So big changes. And of course, like we adapt. Like I expect there to be disruptors in the industry. And so we quickly adapt, but I mean, for us, like it doesn't get much more major than that.
Right. And so Lance Kenmore with the Kenmore team, to the audience that doesn't know you, who is Lance Kenmore and who is the Kenmore team?
Yeah, so we are a local sales and management company in Tri-Cities, Washington. We focus on the Columbia Basin, so we're also licensed in Oregon. So we will basically go from Pendleton to Grandview and cover the Columbia Basin in between with sales and property management, managing properties for investors and landlords.
Yeah, awesome. And Kenmore's been around since.
I've been in real estate since '99, and then as a brand and its own brokerage, we became that in 2012.
Crazy. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I remember.
I'm getting old. Yeah, that's what that means.
Well, back in 2022, your kids were in high school, or they were just getting off to college.
Yeah,
and Mia was going.
They were just getting off to college. I've got one D1 female hockey player, so she's about to go into her senior year, but she plays back in Boston for Stonehill College. And then I successfully have launched. My son has graduated from SMU in Dallas and is headed to be a finance analyst for Amazon.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
So he's staying in Dallas for a couple of years.
And you just were spending the weekend with him, right? You guys had coffee on the beach. And
We
then
did,
Your daughter surprised
yeah.
you?
Father's Day, and yeah, he's home he doesn't start his new job for a month and a half, and so he's home helping dad. And then my daughter drove from Boise she's doing an internship, so she drove down to surprise us.
So I don't have kids. I have 3 dogs.
Okay.
And but like looking at your life from the outside in, like successful, busy, but you have 2 kids that are very successful and look like they have everything very well put together or heading in that direction, like you talked about your son. Like that's
Yeah.
a major deal. Congrats to him. But like, how is that like life balance? Like, as you're growing and building the Kenmore team and the success that it's had, like, how is that balance? And what would you give advice? What advice would you give to like a parent that like has kids in that like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and they're busy with their
Yeah.
business?
That's a really good question. Man, you didn't send me any of these ahead of time.
No, man. Like, how did you and
No,
Karen manage that?
it's a really good question, and I do say to a lot of people, um, there's a portion of it that I feel very blessed and lucky because they have done a really good job. But I think as we have a huge advantage. And so I would challenge parents to figure out how to do this. And I talk to a lot of parents about this, and there's a lot of disadvantages to being an entrepreneur and very busy. But one of the big advantages of that is that you have an opportunity to expose your kids to what that looks like and expose them to what work looks like. Like I feel bad for some parents because with the labor laws and what they're doing, like you can't send your 14-year-old out to work or get a job. It's very difficult, I shall say, to find that. Where we grew up in an environment, myself originally from agriculture and farming, and then my kids being in the real estate industry and car wash industry, we put them to work like early. And then we made them responsible for jobs and money and banking. And so we just exposed them to that really early on with a vision and a path of what that could get them. I'm big into visioning and pathways for that. So my kids started, like, people think I'm crazy with this stuff, but like my kids started with like vision boards at like 4 and 5 years old. Really is when we would start family, because Karen and I were doing it. So for businesses and for what we're doing, like, and so the kids just they just naturally went into that. And so they wanted to participate in that project and they started doing that. And that's what gave them, I think people take for granted kids can have visions of what they want to become very, very early if you let them. And then if you put a path in place for them to achieve that, it's crazy. I mean, I know you've seen all the stories out there, but my son had a Camaro on his vision board from age 6, and then he went to Disneyland, and I'll never forget there's a place at Disneyland where you can like build model cars and stuff. So then he builds his Camaro at that, and then he works on the farm and works in real estate, and then he buys that car. That doesn't happen by accident. I just think it's a process.
Yeah, and I'm reading a book called Work the Systems, and it talks about that, and the intent behind something that, like, if you put that intent and it, like, actually physically becomes possible for you in your life. And I may be just like you, and I might be incorrect, but, like, my dad did the best with what he had at the time, and it wasn't vision boards, and he was very, like, old school, like, it's my way or the highway. You didn't get the long cut. By the time I got home, you're getting your butt beat, like, it was like, so my, like, learning was through, like, discipline and very strict parenting. And so my dad works for me, as you know. We have the greatest relationship now, but, like, in high school it was very hard because it was like, dude, like, I got more support from my coaches. I told him one time, like, my coaches support me more than you, and whenever you're home, all you're doing is yelling at me for the stuff that I didn't do, and it's never any positive praise. But, like, I look back in hindsight and I'm grateful for that because I got my work ethic from it, and I got my, like, hey, I'm not soft, and I believe that. And I don't have kids, but, like, my best friends that I grew up with are now starting to have kids, and I'm just like, what the heck's wrong with you? Our parents would have never let that slide. You're so soft now. He's like, oh, well, you don't have kids. You don't understand. I'm like, oh, maybe so. But, like, man, I just feel like we became soft as a society.
Well, we did in a lot of ways. And so we did in a lot of ways. And so there's going to have to be, I always believe the pendulum swings too far. We try, we go one way where it's like, what you and I grew up in, probably sometimes not the best, even though, like, you and I responded well to it. Like, my dad, there's these things that water fields called pivot irrigation, and they get stuck. And I remember my dad would drop me off in the morning, 10 years old, with a shovel and, and a jug of water. And he would be like, hey, I'll be back and pick you up at 1 for lunch. And you need to have that track filled in so that we can water the corn, And so, But there's, I'm pretty sure they would put those. I'm pretty sure some of those parents will go to jail if
Yeah,
they.
if they did that
I mean, there's
nowadays,
some
right?
great guys that are still teaching their kids that on the farm. But if people saw what
Yeah,
happened there, like, yeah, so maybe the pendulum was a little bit out of whack then, but now it's gone
yeah,
completely the other way. And I network with CEOs and stuff that are hiring, and so I do feel like we did go too far, but I feel like we're coming back and finding some moderation in that. And I think if you can, I'd say, find a conduit where your kids can do some work to learn some responsibility
yeah.
earlier than you think.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked that question is just because I look at your Facebook posts and I see what your kids are doing, and that's something that I look up to because I don't have kids, and
Yeah.
I look at my dad's relationship and I look at some of my other family members' relationships with their kids, and some of their kids don't talk to their dads. So
Yep.
my cousins don't have the greatest relationship with, but you look at you and your kids, and it's like, wow, my daughter drove down to Boise to surprise me, and I went and
Yeah.
had coffee. Like, dude, that's impact.
It's
Like, screw the real estate, screw
Yeah,
the buildings.
correct,
Like, dude, that
correct.
is awesome.
Yeah, it is really cool. And I do think too, I think people drastically underestimate what it takes to make it to that level. And so I'll never forget, and it takes very, very difficult, hard choices. And so, like, I'll never forget. So our daughter was very independent, very hardworking. She was identified what it took, and so she was getting in that track with some of the Olympic camps and going that direction. And when you look at it in her sport, there's probably only 130 to 160 spots a year for freshmen, in 45 women's D1 ice hockey teams. And so you got to decide, like, what is it going to take to make one of those 140 spots out of the United States? And so for her, it was coming to us like in 8th grade, and she's like, I've got to make a switch to women's hockey, and I'm ready. So it's part like listening to when they're ready. Because if you think Karen and I were ready, you're crazy. Like, this is my 8th grade girl. This is my baby. And she's like, I got to go. And we're like, well, to make that switch, you've got to leave home. Like, you can't live with us anymore. And so she's like, yes, I'm ready. Like, send me to an elite, hockey. Let me go try out and see if I can make the team. And we were like, okay, if you make it, then we'll lean towards saying so. But if you don't think my wife and I shed some tears about our kids, and that's why I say hang on to your kids every day, because mine came to me at the end of 8th grade, and then she had to go to Canada.
That's what I
And,
remember that story vividly.
yeah, and I was like, I just lost 3.5 years with her. And so I always tell my friends, like, when your kid is getting 9, 10, 11, dude, like, it's gonna go quick.
So this was 8th grade, and from 8th grade she went to go to Canada
Yeah.
to pursue because the long term vision, right? You
Yeah,
talk
she
about
she
that.
said she said I want to play. And I remember you talk about your coaches encouraging her. She had a soccer coach, Evan Bwelt, never forget, that had the girls say she was playing on a high level soccer team, and he got all the girls together and he said, hey, I want you to tell me where you want to play and what you want to do. And at that point she was still playing soccer, and I remember being at the parents meeting, and these girls are like University of Arizona, Colorado, soccer team, soccer team, soccer team. And my daughter is like University of Minnesota Gophers hockey. And she's like saying this in front of all the soccer parents. And I'm like, oh my God. But she knew, and her soccer coach never once made her feel like that wasn't the right choice. He like applauded her for it and said, I'm just glad you're a multi-sport athlete. That's what you want to go do.
So crazy.
It was crazy. A soccer coach was as impactful as some of her hockey coaches were. So
So crazy.
I appreciate people like that in our kids' lives.
And the thing is, man, that I was listening to this interview. I watch a lot of this stuff, and it was this guy interviewing one of the wealthiest lawyers in the nation, and he said that what was the thing that like separated you, and what advice would you give yourself? And he's like, well, I too many business owners pat their own back too many times, and
Oh, yeah.
most people have to get on their knees and thank God because I made a million right turns and a million left turns. Any of those could have gone completely different. That could have led me to a totally different area
Yeah.
that where I'm at now. And so you think about the percentage of your daughter going to play D1, and that all started in 8th grade. One decision from you guys selfishly being like, no, we're not ready. You're not going to go to Canada. You're
Yeah.
not going to live with us. You're in 8th grade. What are you thinking about? Like if you guys would, and if she wouldn't have clicked, and if her coach wouldn't have encouraged her, and every little thing that ended up to where she is now, like it was specific and it was intentional. And I always tell people that you're always one decision away from changing your life.
Yeah.
And that could be in a good way or that could be in a bad way. You're one decision away. That you heard about that accident just down the street.
I did earlier
I don't know
today.
what the cause of it. I don't know much about it, but it could have been on your phone.
Oh
you
boy,
know?
I drove differently today when I went down to grab a Starbucks, and I was like, it was in my brain like, man, that person's life changed dramatically today.
Like
Yeah.
the both and the from the victim's family and from the driver's family, like
Yep.
like I always tell this in reference to my guys and my sales trainings all the time. It's like, man, like right time, right moment. Like if you think about how when I bought A&A Roofing, it wasn't a plan from years ago. Like Alan called me one day out of the blue. I had talked to him once in my lifetime at the distribution store. And he goes, and we just said hi and bye. I knew he owned the roofing company. I was working for a competitor of his at the time. One day he rings my phone. Hey, this is Alan. Hey, Dan Thickman told me that you're leaving the industry, and me and my wife are thinking about retiring and moving to Texas. But the only thing that's holding us down is our kid and our business, and we want to get out before our kid grows up. He was at 5th grade at the time and makes friends. He goes, would you be interested in buying the business? I remember going, absolutely not. I had $6,000 in my checking account.
Absolutely not.
I had $6,000 in my checking account.
Oh,
and
man.
so then he went, come to dinner, come over, we'll just talk. I could have said no, that would have changed my life. So I go to dinner, which led to a second dinner. And by the end of the second dinner, I agreed to purchase his house and I agreed to purchase his business on the seller finance deal. If I had $6,000, and I tell people if I would have been an analytics guy and a numbers guy, I would have weighed out my risk versus the reward and my money versus what, and I would have said no, But I just was dumb and just full of hope, and he had inspired me, and so I said, let's do it. And he goes, well, seller finance, give me $50,000 down and the rest over installed payments. And I go, great. Well, I have to raise $44,000. So what do? I go and I call my dad, and I go and call the people. My uncle let me borrow $10,000.
Yeah.
A guy I used to sell Amway vitamins let me borrow $5,000. My dad sold one of his trucks, let me borrow $25,000.
Dang, man.
And then in a month I raised $50K, and we went and bought his business. Paid my dad back in a month. Paid everybody that let me borrow. A roofing company in town that is still a roofing company in town let me borrow $5,000.
That's awesome.
And it was just one decision. I could have said no. I could have denied the dinner. I could have.
Yeah, that's a
and it just-
dinner, an open mind, and then the follow through. But it's harder than people think, because you had all of those things, and then there were some hard things that happened along the way. You had to ask your uncle. You had to ask a roofing company, and so there are some steps where it becomes harder. But it is still, yeah, it's that saying yes to those decisions and turns, and then having an open mind to that.
Yeah, preparedness, success is with preparedness and opportunity meet, man. There was an opportunity, and if I wasn't prepared enough, I would have let it slide. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't see myself 4 years from now looking at that roofing company that I could have bought.
Yeah,
As I'm working, at some random job, and I'm just like, gosh, that could have been me. And so with that being said, is like from that interview, because you were my first guest on that part, but from that interview in 2022. What advice would you give Lance Kenmore now if you were to look back in hindsight and be in that position at that time? What advice would you give? What decisions would you have made different? Because I have a lot of people that, pre-COVID, they go, oh my gosh, I said no to this house, and then this house went and sold for the X amount of money. Like, I was so silly of me. I would have bought 4 different rental properties or bought that. But like for you, if you look back at Lance Kenmore in 2022 from where you're at now, what advice would you give yourself differently? What would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I would say, I'm always kind of analyzing these things um, and looking at those situations, and I would say that recruiting and hiring talented people, I would do faster. And I know that sounds counter to what people thought happened in the market, but I was able to make some really good hires in the last, you know, year and a half. And I look back and say, you know, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do this 3 years ago? You know, like it was just like I should have. And I think you always, like anybody that analyzes their business, you always end up in this is like, I could have made some more aggressive hires faster, and I waited a little bit, and then you get these amazing people in your organization. You're like, why did I wait? Why didn't I just do that sooner? So I would I would do that for sure, and then I'm in real estate, right? So I always say like buy more when the rates are lower. You know, like so many of these multifamily investment projects that we look at are harder to pencil nowadays, and so we could have developed a few more properties in 22 and 23 before the rates went back up.
Yeah.
It would have been easier on for some of our projects.
In that book that I'm reading, besides work the system, I'm reading another one that says the three things that a CEO should focus on, and those three things is culture, people, and numbers.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
just being hyper focused on those things, and
Yeah.
anything besides that is learning how to delegate and throw that off, because you should be hyper focused on making sure that there's money in the bank, making sure you're hiring the right people, and making sure that your culture is where it's supposed to be. And tell you what, man, like you were actually one of my first deals. I remember there was that house off of Court Street, past like the Pizza Hut on the left hand side. It was one of your deals. And you go, hey, go and give me a quote. Oh, you didn't even ask for a quote. Just say, hey, go look at it. Let me know when you could get on the schedule. And so you're like one of the original people that we ever worked with. And since then, we've built a great relationship. And there's been moments there. I remember there's been some moments where our relationship has been tested,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's how you respond to those things sometimes. You
Absolutely.
know
I
what I'm
think,
saying?
yeah, I think that's important. And as you get older, you start to realize that everybody's in a different point in their cycle, and, when I was younger, like these things used to irritate me a little bit. Like, for instance, you do 3 loans with the bank, you make all your payments on time, you do 3 projects with the bank and stuff, and then you bring them the exact same fourth project, and they're like, no, we don't do that anymore. And so we're not going to do that. Well, like a younger Lance would just get pissed off about that. I would just be like, oh, this is crap. I've never missed a payment. I'm a good. Why won't they do this one? Well, they're in a cycle. They're in a cycle as well. And so they were back when they did my other 3 deals, they were in a growth cycle and they had metrics to meet, and maybe they got their risk tolerances out of whack at the bank. Like, I don't know what's going on in their cycle. And so I think you have to ask questions with your partners and talk to them and say, like, what is going on right now with you that caused this to happen? And do I need to make adjustments for that?
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, like I ask a few more questions like that and don't fly off the handle. I hope nearly as
So
much.
relatable, man. So relatable. Now that like I'm my production manager is just so awesome, man. He's one of those hires that just came on in February, and I look back and I go, man, why couldn't I have found this guy 3 years ago? I'd be so far ahead. Man, I'd be retired, right? No, I'm kidding, but
Right.
it's one
Yeah.
of those guys that just brings so much value to your business. And I look at him, and sometimes he reacts to situations, and I just like, hey, Brandon, listen, I said, before anything, when you get a complaint, when you get anything from a homeowner, from a contractor, from whatever, always find out all sides of the story.
Yeah.
Talk to your guys, talk to the homeowner, because in that conversation, you're going to find out the truth.
Yeah.
And most of the times, your guys are always right. I can't tell you the amount of times where a homeowner has called me, and then I let my labor guys have it, and then I'll go and revisit, and they'll go, dude, but the thing is that this and this happened, and I'll go, dude, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see that. You're so quick to react that you don't understand the full
Right.
thing that's going on, and then you're the bad guy. So now it's like, it could be like, dude, we just installed the wrong color on the house. Okay, let's slow down. Let's not get excited. What happened? where did this happen, what happened, and then if once I know all the details, okay, there's a system that's broken.
Yeah.
Now we
Yeah.
got to fix that system so it doesn't happen again. And there's been some of those things that culture has been those things that I was telling you, going back to where I was going with that, is that you were our first deal. And back then I was accounts receivable, accounts payable, production manager. I was the guy that would order the materials, schedule the crews, pick up the check, pay the bills, take the checks to the bank account, reconcile it, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you get to a point where you have to bring other people because
Right.
but it was my baby, right? Like this A&A was my baby. And they were like, you need to hire a sales guy. And I'm like, but I know how sales guys are. They overpromise and they underdeliver. And thankfully, I found Misael. And
Yeah.
Misael has came and he's flourished. He's on the Misael was my first sales guy. Now Misael is on a 30, 60, 90 ramp up to be our team lead.
Yeah.
After he becomes our team lead, then he's going to be on a 30 to 60 to be our sales manager. And so my point with that is it wasn't until this year, January of this year, when the switch finally flipped for me, and it was like, man, like last year we came off of our biggest year, it was $5 million, but it was 5 million with these no
Yeah.
systems, no processes. It was just same repeated issues over and over again, and my justification was, well, I'm too busy. I'll fix those in a bit. I'll fix those this weekend. We'll focus on that later, not understanding that if you fix the root of the problem and you put a system in spot, you're doing the temporary work of doing something for a more permanent solution. And so we came up with our core values. We came in with our mission statement. We came in with our remarkable principles. Our remarkable principles is reliable, responsive, and professional. I didn't pick those. I went on Google and I looked at all of our reviews and I picked the 3 most common used words in our Google reviews. And it was reliable, responsive, and professional. So I put those on our remarkable principles. Now they're on our vans, they're on our trucks, they're on our website, they're on our business cards. And what that did was it keeps us all accountable. My sales guys, I tell them all the time, if a customer calls us off of our van and we're not reliable or we're not 3 of those 3 things, then we're not doing our job, guys.
Yeah.
Because they called us and they wanted a same day, next day estimate. Where the heck is that at? You showed up and you weren't professional. You weren't responsive. They went 2-3 days without hearing from you. What are we doing? And it's created this buy-in, and our culture, man. We've hired. We have, man. When I met you, we had 6 guys. We're up to about 52 now. We have
A lot of growth.
8 sales reps, 2 admins, a production manager, a field supervisor, my dad, and then the rest are installers.
Yeah.
And one of those things is we since the beginning, we had to watch our culture. We had to hire the right people, get the wrong people off of the bus.
Yep.
And put the right people in the
And
bus.
that's a hard, that's not an enjoyable experience.
You've had to go through that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at one point we had a whole separate division that didn't align with our cultures. It was in the real estate space, but it messed up our culture. And so we had to ran that, and it's hard at that level to fail. And you're like, I'm not doing a great job at this. It's messing up our culture. We have to reorganize all of this and get rid of that division and then focus in on what we're really good at and what we enjoy doing and gives us a good culture. And life changing once you get through it, but at the time, like really, really difficult. So yeah, been there and gone through that. It's one of those things where you always, 3 months after the fact, you're like, once again, you're like, why didn't I do this sooner? And so for me, like, to fix that problem that, is broken either inside myself or business leaders is I just try to surround myself with like much smarter people. Like I have like basically a board that gives me advice from different industries, and we meet once a month, and those guys can identify the problems that I might be dragging my feet on or unwilling to do. And so we'll bring an issue to the table, and they'll be like, by the end of tomorrow, 100%, this is what you should be doing. And so, it's like forced accountability for me in some of those scenarios so that we can just grow faster.
And most people as business owners, especially small business owners, we get that ego in us and we're like, we have to be the smartest person in the room or in our business or
Right,
whatever. Like,
yeah.
oh, you're smarter than me, you're fired. Or no, it's my way because I'm the owner of this. But you need smarter people than you,
Absolutely. Somebody brought me something before the show, like before lunch, and they're like, "Hey, I think it was a parking pass or something for a new multifamily development," and I was like, "I am zero help with you on this. I trust that X, Y, and Z will make a good decision. Please take that to them." So they can make that decision. And and then she told me that they have experience in this. And I was like, oh, well, great. Then like, I am going to mess this up. I am no, so I've got no problem just deferring that to somebody that can do a better job faster than I can.
Yeah. In the thing is we have the in the Work the Systems book again. It's just such a great book. Sam Carpenter, in case you haven't read it, and again he talks about how in his business in Centrato, it's actually a Bend-based business, a telecommunications business, and how they've scaled and what he does now. It's super impressive. But he has a policy that if they allow their employees that if there's a better improvement within that system, then they're rewarded and compensated for bringing that up. So you get paid to say, hey, this system could be this better, like this, and then they have to bring in, and they have to listen to it. They don't have to apply it, but they at least have to listen to that person, and if it's something, they get compensated for that.
Yeah.
So you have people that in your business improving systems all the time, and for me, we're a very reoccurring business.
Yep.
A customer calls the phone, we have to go out and give them a quote, build, color selection, post completion, invoicing, all that. Like it's very repeatable. And so there's always rooms for improvement.
Yeah.
Well, this customer complained that, we cracked their driveway. The thing has 80,000 cracks. The house is from 1995,
Right.
Did we take our pictures before? Yeah, they're right here. Okay, go to the customer, show them the before pictures. We're protected, things like that a
Yeah.
lot of people don't think because they're so let's build it, but there's systems behind that. And so for me, like to you, and since we're talking about people and culture, what has been one of the toughest decisions that you've had to make in your business in the last couple years? One that just stands out that was like, man, that really tested me.
Oh, I think it is the fact that for years, like I really, and you talked about that ego portion, as I started to systematize the business, and we had to do the exact same process, is how can we systematize this? How can we get the same photographer, the same 3D tours? And as we went through all of that process, I always prided myself on being the one meeting in the living room with that homeowner to help them sell their house on the listing side of the business for ourselves. And that was to get to help as many families as we possibly could and then teach more agents to be able to do that. I couldn't be in every single living room. I can't sell, 600 homes a year, and be in every single living room and manage, 700 units for investors. So that was the last thing I gave up. And I said, okay, you know, I now have to be the CEO of this business. I can't be in all of those living rooms. And so for me, that was the most difficult. And there's a comfort of, because I knew it so well, that was very comfortable. Like I can go into a house and tell you in seconds what it should probably be priced at, what needs to be fixed, and what it's going to take to get sold. So that's very comfortable, right? Because I had done it, 10,000, 20,000 times. And so, giving that up, saying that I can teach. Now my guys, like, they're better at it than I am, but I'm better at, directing the business and where we need to go. But yeah, that was hard. That was a real shot. And that I was not in those living rooms.
Yeah, man. And I'm on like my 18th book this year. One of my goals this year was
Yeah,
to read 50 some books this year.
love it.
I think it's 52. But like I enjoy it. I don't just read. Like I really enjoy reading. I'll be reading on the plane, on the car ride. I'll be reading. But one of the books that I recently read was Good to Great, and they talk about how the enemy of good is great, and we don't have great governments because we have good governments, and we don't have great schools because we have good schools, and most companies never turn great because they're just good, and you get to that point where you're just making money and life is good, and then you just settle.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Maybe some people just like, but I wanted to be a great company. And so it talks about how out of the Fortune 500 companies that they did a 5-year study on, only 11 made the cut. And it starts talking about all the things in it. And one of the things that it talks about, again, it's a commonality, is culture and people. And one of the things is getting out of that seat and allowing, because I feel like a lot of people will relate to this, is that a lot of small business owners, they feel like they have to be in control of
Yep.
everything,
100%.
and you have to let go sometimes and get the right people on the right bus, give them
Yep.
the proper training, systemize the things, and then you just maintain those systems,
Yeah.
because you guys, I mean, I don't know if you know, but how many listings are you guys doing in a year?
Yeah. I mean, 250,
And then your
you know,
property management side of things,
yeah. Yeah.
how many service calls are coming through? You got the HVAC, you
Yeah.
got the roofing, you got all these other things. So how do you like you to be able to spend time with your kids and travel? It's impossible.
Yeah, there's it's a KPI that they track daily. There's probably at any one time there's 130 work orders out there right now, and I have to have 3 people managing where those are at to get all those scheduled and
Holy
repaired.
smokes.
And so yeah, it's a lot. And we celebrate big time when they pull that number down under 90. It's like, okay, let's have a party. And so yeah, so it's we track all of that very, very closely.
And it's so crazy, yeah. Because now that you say, like, I mean, we get the work orders on the roofing side, so
Yeah.
they're pretty frequent, especially like in that November, December, January time when all the
Absolutely.
leaks are happening. So it's just like,
Absolutely.
man, like for you to manage them, how many properties are you guys managing? Would you say?
About 700 right now. Yeah, and so yeah, so we're
And you're out of that side of the business, like you have your people that are you. How involved are you on the property management
so
side?
I'm CEO still of that side of the company as well. So I'm not, once again, I'm not in the day to day. I'm not in the work orders. But we're setting vision and direction for the company. And then we acquired a local company 2 years ago, and then got that systematized and added. And then we're actively making offers on other companies in kind of our West Coast region. So we're now looking at expanding out of Columbia Basin for that.
It's impressive. But if, like, I remember, like, being a young business owner, I would look at, like you, for example, and a lot of these bigger entrepreneurs in our area, and I was just like, oh my God, like these guys are, superhumans, and then a lot of people from that are barely starting up with zero experience, just like the will to get their business started. I kind of just want you to like break it down, because for me, people will come up to me now and be like, "How do you do it? What do you do? Like, what is your secret? What are you doing this? How are you doing that?" And the thing is that I'm just as human. Like me and you are
Yeah.
just as human as each other. We put on our pants the same way. We put on our socks the same way. And it's the same thing. But the thing that I feel that I just do different than somebody else is my habits. So the podcast is called Unclouded. You think of unclouded, it's clear skies, no clouds. So in order to be successful in your life, in your marriage, in your business, with your relationships, personal friendships, you have to be unclouded.
Yes.
What habits do you have you developed? What's your routine? Or what do you do on a day-to-day basis to stay unclouded with the world pulling you this way, and bills and payments and running a property management company, and then the real estate side, and then your other investments that you might have on the side, and having kids and a wife? How do you juggle all of that? What are the habits that you have developed that you would say that are the most important, or what is your routine on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I've always been fortunate. I mean, sometimes sometimes I'm not great at this. And so yeah, we've done some amazing things, and I will say these things kind of build up over time, and I think once again people underestimate how much time it'll take. Like some of the big moves we've been able to make have happened in the last 5 years after
Mm.
working very diligently for 17, and then things exponentially change. I would say farming taught me early when I was young is it's very hard to replace getting up early. And so for a number of years, I think that you have to make some sacrifices and get up earlier than you think you need to. And I'm not saying that doesn't have to be 3:30 in the morning. But I can tell you with certainty, and once again, I think a lot of people might disagree with this and not like this, but I can tell you with certainty how many times I saw my buddies in my 20s at Circle K down here. It's actually being torn down now, and I would be there at 4 in the morning, headed to the office to do the paperwork, and they were going hunting. They were leaving to go duck hunting, and so we would see each other at Circle K, and I wasn't hunting with them. So I can go now, but there's a number of years where you gotta get up early and put some extra work
Some
in.
elbow grease in it.
Yeah, I just think you have to. I don't know what your take on this is, but like there was a lot of long, difficult days to put some elbow grease into it.
100%, especially in the early stages. Like we talk about systems and we talk about people and we talk about culture, but there was a point where the culture was you.
100%.
It was just you.
Yeah.
Like, the work ethic was there was no systems because you were doing everything. And so as a business, like, yeah, great. I'd love to be, a contractor and then day one have systems and SOPs and a whole accounts payable system and jobs lined up. But in the beginning, you're the guy that's going on and estimating, and you're the guy that's doing the work, and you do have to get up. And I cannot agree more with you, because I just made I put it on my story, and I was in the office on Saturday. And I was it's so crazy. We went to this deal, and we have met with the owners so many times, and just always bringing value. And that's one thing that I always tell myself, just bring value, man. Like, don't sell them on something they don't need. Just help them. And if they don't got an issue, just let them know what the issue could be in the future. And as long as they know that they can trust you, they'll go with you. And so this specific owner, we've been dealing with for a couple years. So they call me and they go, hey, we'd like to, meet up. And would you be interested in coming down next week? So I take my production manager, because I'm kind of just showing him how I like to work everything. And so he comes and we sit down, and they go, hey, how you doing? We catch up, and they go, well, you know what? We decided that we want to use you for the roofing. And I kind of just looked at my production guy. He goes, we made a decision, and, we put a lot of, votes for you, and we just decided that we're going to use you. And I just kind of looked at her and I said, well, have we given you a quote yet? And I was just super confused. And she goes, no, but we're going to use you. And I go, okay, this is awesome, but you're talking, and I ended up sending the quote on Saturday, and it was $352,000, not including taxes, and, the thing is that, like, we didn't take advantage of me. Oh, we didn't give them a quote. I'm gonna mark this puppy up. Like, they gave us that trust. So I'm not gonna take advantage of that.
They knew,
they knew, and so it was a relationship that built over time. And now I'm able to do that. But in day one, I had to grind that out. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I got this. It's called the Whoop, and I'm so obsessed with it now. Like, I've been
Dude, that's so funny. Yeah.
You got one?
Oh yeah, I'm wearing mine right. I'm a numbers guy, right? Like, I mean, you've got to know your numbers.
Yes. And so now there's damn things telling me what time is my bedtime and my steps. And it was one of those things that I was like, oh my gosh, my sleep not the amount of sleep, but my sleep consistency on what time I was going to bed and what time I was waking up. It was like at a 40%. I'm up to like 86% now.
It's a game changer. I will tell you though, I like country music festivals. And if you go to a 3-day festival, you get whoop shamed. Like, it tells me, like, I'm too old, and it says I'm going to die. Like, it literally, it gives you a skull and crossbones if you drink too much and don't sleep enough. So maybe just not wear it to country music festivals.
Yeah, there you go, man.
But yeah, no, you've got to know your numbers.
Yes.
And I think that's the other thing that sometimes people ignore, and that's what the Whoop is it's like, it's your health and recovery number. And it's so funny, we were talking about my kids and stuff. Like, we're also a highly competitive family. Like, so we have a family group, And then like there's like the strain, like champion every week. It's always my daughter, who is unfair. No, nothing's unfair. She's a Division 1 athlete, so but she's
Right.
like working out like 4 hours a day and has games. Like she wins
Her
strain.
strain's like
She wins
20 some
strain
and yours is
every
like 12.
single week during season. My wife is like amazing at sleep recovery. I barely ever win anything. But but you know, like you said, you got to know your numbers in your business. Are you making money? What things are you making money on? And why are you hanging on to things that don't make money?
And the other part to that is like we want to be super successful in our business, but we let go of he was a great we had just hired him on. He was actually overperforming from the other sales guys that we had. He had doubled. He had gapped them by double.
Whoa.
So he was twice the revenue of the guy that was second. As far as the new sales reps, I got 5 new sales reps and was just a killer. Very like just serious guy, straight to business. But we do a lot. One of my core values is excellence, and it's continuously grow through personal development. I don't care if that's with your fitness. I don't care if that's with your marriage. I don't care if
Yeah.
that's professionally. You just have to continuously grow because we all come here, but then as we start to level up and you're down here and the other people are up here, we're on different frequencies now.
Yeah.
And so he's great, numbers wise, customer wise, knew his stuff. But we started doing these challenges, and we call them trek challenges. What's your best footprint? What's your worst footprint? How can you improve? He sent a message and said, "Hey, you know what? I was hired on to be an estimator, and this just feels like it's outside of my job description. And maybe I'm wrong for thinking this way, and can somebody educate me on maybe why I should be thinking?" And I said, "You know what? Like, fair question, very valid question." I said, "Since you were real with me, I'll be real with you. But when you were hired on, I showed you the core values. I showed you a position outline agreement, and you agreed. And I asked you, is there anything that you disagree with these core values? Nothing. One of those was excellence. This is what excellence looks like real time."
Yeah.
And I said, it's not BS that you think that way, but the expectation is, do you think Navy SEALs just go out there and they shoot guns? Like, they're freaking tidying their beds and carrying logs and getting freaking running on the sea at like freaking negative temperature. Like, because how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And so he didn't really take that message the right way and said, "Hey, well, when can I turn my gear?" So it was like, "Hey, turn in your gear." He's no longer with us, but that set the standard
Right.
for the rest of the guys. And the point where I'm going with that point is that a lot of us feel like we could be crappy parents, crappy friends, crappy with our habits, and then all of a sudden come in and be a great sales guy. It's like, you can't just choose what you could be good. Like, you have to holistically and overall be a good person. So most of our business owners is like, how can I get my business to get to 6 figures?
Yep.
How can I get my business to be to 7 figures? But the fact is that your sleep, man, your recovery, your alcohol consumption,
Yep.
your everything has to do, because if you don't grow, your business doesn't grow. I'm on 75 hard right now. I'm on day 40 today. So are you familiar with 75 hard?
This is
The Andrew Frisilla. So it's
This is my 3rd year in a row.
for 75 hard?
February 8th to whatever it ends up
Really?
being. Yeah, this is my 3rd year in a row.
Cool. So I tried doing it this last November, and I only did it for 11 days, and then I fell off.
November's a terrible month to do it.
Tell me
Sorry,
about
I'm just kidding. Here's my unsolicited advice.
Well,
that was a. Why didn't you call me? That was a horrible idea. Who told you to do this in November?
See, that's what you should counsel up on some of these things. My
Gotcha.
mindset behind that was like, if I get past the holidays and if I get past Christmas, I'm solid. Like, if I could get past, and the thing is that I came around Thanksgiving and my mom started feeding me. And
Oh,
I started,
yeah.
and so that was it.
Yep.
But one of the things that now there was actually purpose behind
Yeah.
75 hard. It wasn't just like a checklist. Oh, 2 workouts, gallon of water, 10 pages of reading, progress photo, and what. Like, that was what it was back then. So it was easy for me to fall off. But now it was like there was purpose behind it. Like, what is the reason? Like, dude, I was always between 206, 198, back to 204, 195, 198. And then I was going to the gym 5 days a week. But on the weekends, I was binge drinking, right? Alcohol.
I wonder why you and I get along so well. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know that cycle. Yeah.
And then I lock in 75. I go, I'm gonna do this. Like there's purpose.
Yep.
There's a reason why I'm doing it, and it started becoming part of my routine. It wasn't just it was part of my life. So I get up 4:30. This thing's freaking buzzing me.
Yep.
I get up. I already did my work, my indoor workout. I did my 10 pages of reading, and and sometimes in my indoor workout, if I don't go to the gym, I'll go on the treadmill, I'll put it to 2 level incline 10. I'll get my book out and I'll walk and I'll read at the same time. So I'll do those two things at the end of. So now throughout my day, subconsciously, I'm thinking, oh, I got to get home early today because I still got to do my outside workout. Father's Day yesterday, I had to leave early so I could come and do my outdoor
Game
workout.
changer.
I went from 206. I weighed myself yesterday morning. I was 180.4.
Yep.
I'm 1 pound away from being in the 170s. I
Yep.
haven't been in the 170s since my senior year in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was like we're very similar. Even the numbers you're throwing out are very similar because I was struggling. I couldn't get below 190. I couldn't get below 190. I went and saw my doctor and she's like, well, your cholesterol's getting higher too. And I'm like, oh, shocker. It's getting worse as I weigh more. It's like not rocket science. And so, yeah, it's amazing when you cut out the alcohol, you get outside, you do those workouts and steps, and talk about knowing your numbers at your data at the end of Hard 75. It's just it's so easy. You look at the numbers and you're getting 18,000 steps a day versus 6. It's like, oh wow, I wonder why this works.
Your water.
Your water, and so it's yeah, I'm a huge fan of 75 Hard, and I kind of for me, it's a reset every year. So we get through the holidays and that, and it's like, okay, it's like now mid-February, it's like, okay, back to business. And I feel like business-wise, we always have a real strong quarter, first and second quarter. And it's because when you lock in, like you said, it's how clean your car is. It's how clean your house is. When you lock in, those are indicators of how you're going to treat everything else.
And that's money there because I'm part of a consulting group now. I go to South Carolina once a quarter to go down and I get around these people, kind of like a board like you're talking about. And a lot of these guys were the reason why I got into 75. It's like, dude, almost all these guys that have completed it or like they just never stopped.
Yeah.
They're like on day 100 and something, and they're on second phase of 75 hard.
Yep.
And they talk about like one guy, it was like his 732nd day of doing a 5K or 700 some days of tracking his calories.
Yeah.
And he's in his like 50s and looks like he would beat my butt, And
Yeah.
it's like, but they're very, very smart. But the thing is that like, not only does 75 hard like make you lose weight, but it creates that habit that allows you to keep using in your life. Like, man, like, dude, like I don't crave alcohol no more.
Yeah.
Like I really don't. Like it's just one of those things that like it doesn't interest me.
You figure out real quick how your body readjusts to it. And it's really because like day 30 is kind of where everything kind of switches. That first 30 days
So
detox
crazy.
and stuff, and then man, you pass over in that day 30 and it's just like this is awesome. All of a sudden you're walking, everything just different choices become exponential. I remember I was doing the outdoor workout on Badger, and you'd start off and you'd go halfway up, and then third week, you're going all the way up and down, and then it's like, oh, now I can run halfway up, and then it's like, oh man, I can go around the backside, and now I'm doing 8 miles instead of 4. And so it just, yeah, I'm a huge fan of it.
It's so crazy how you said about day 30 because remember I said I couldn't get past the 190, and so I chat GPT'd. I said, look, this is my calories, this is my workouts, this is 75 hard that I'm going to start doing. Where should I be at and when should I see the results? And it said, don't expect to see results until 30 to 35 days.
Awesome.
And so I'm day 7, day 10, day 15, which is the beginning is always the hardest to begin with.
Yeah.
Still developing all that. And so I'm getting on the scale and I'm like, oh man, I'm still like right there. I'm like, whatever, like I'm going to keep going. It said day 30, day 35. And right around day 35, day 36, I went from 194 to like 189.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck, must be water weight. And then I checked a couple days later, and then I was like 187.
Yeah.
And then day 40, though, then it was like day 40, which is today. Yesterday, day 39, I'm 180. And
Dude,
it just all
that's-
happened just like
congrats.
that. So you
That's
think about it
awesome.
is a lot of people give up too soon.
Oh,
They're
wait.
on the scale every day, and then after 2 weeks of going to the gym, they're like, oh, I'm the same weight. This sucks. I'm just going to go back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go have a drink. And then they fall off.
Yeah.
But that's in business. A lot of people give up too early.
Way too early. My new agents, as I'm, talking to them and mentoring them and stuff, like, I mean, people know when they come on, I'm talking about a 3-year process. And that's a lot for some people to think about. And you can speed it up with some of the things that are going on with AI and training and stuff, but there's going to be a 3-year process in the real estate business as an agent or a sales guy. And that's a big chunk of time for people to look at. And so I tell people, kind of like you said with your sales guy, like, look, I told you in the beginning, we're in this phase for the first 3 years, and we lay out how they can survive and get to a point, and then it starts to get really fun after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to end the show with this last topic because it's something that's been engraved in my head. And I can remember everything, like the setting, what you were wearing, how you said it. And it just really clicked because you were telling the audience, but it just stuck with me. And you said it, I just because I don't know, for whatever reason, the conversation went, but you said, my biggest growth was in 99, 2000, 2001. I would go to California and I would go to these leadership things and
Yeah.
these masterminds, and I would see what was happening over there, and then I would bring it back to my market, and I would get the leg up on a lot of my competitors. And I remember just thinking about, and then an opportunity came up where I would have to go to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, literally right after we had this show. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And it was the same weekend as my favorite fishing trip at steelhead fishing in Idaho.
We were just talking about hunting.
And right. And so I was like, go to this mastermind that this guy messaged me and said it was free, and I just had to get there, and they were going to give me lodging and food and gear. And I was like, man, this sounds too good to be true. So I go down there, impactful. Changed my life because where I met Hunter Blue. Hunter Blue owns Cornerstone Construction, $50 million business. Founded one of the largest roofing solar conferences, RoofCon. And then founded Revolt, which is a mastermind that really developed me and my roofing business. And then recently, within the last year, became one of my growth partners. We just bought him out, but he was one of my biggest blessings in my life because he had done everything that I was trying to do, and he would just give me the push. Do
Yeah.
this, meet this person, look at these rebates, look at that. And I just would take things, and keep in mind, roofing here, there's nothing. All of my events that I go to are either in South Carolina
Yep.
or in Florida.
Yeah.
So I had to go across the country. I remember going, oh my God, why did I sign up for this? And I would be frustrated, and then I would be pay for the flights, and I would get there, and then I would come back and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy I went. I'm so glad I went.
Yeah.
And then I would implement this. Our CRM, our RoofLink, which is what we use, and it's been game changer for us. I found that out at the roofing conference.
Yeah.
Then I meet a connection there, which connects me a month later without knowing this. And they go, hey, we have another roof. It was called Roof Camp. It was the first roof camp that they'd done. David Taggart was hosting. He goes, hey, you should come. This is how much it is. And this is in 2023. This is the year that we almost went out of business. And I go, dude, like, I just got back from RoofCon. I'm afraid to swipe my card at Subway because I'm afraid it's going to get declined.
Been there.
Literally have like
Yeah.
a couple months left of finances, and I have to figure out something quick. I go to Rock Springs. I get picked up at the airport by some random dudes I've never met in my life that were heading in the same direction. We have a conversation, 2 hours to Rock Springs. We show up at this hunting ranch, antelope and water buffalo and all these sorts of animals. What the heck does this have to do with roofing? Literally, I meet the owner of the CRM, Jake Bryan, who then becomes a big mentor of mine. And he gives me some advice, and then I come back and I run with it. He goes, look, Noe, he goes, I know that you're not in the storm market, but this is what I need you to do. Do this, do this, do that. I go, okay. I go home. We get onboarded with our CRM. I do this on my way to work to the office. He goes, drive by 10 houses that have the worst roofs. It could be Cedar Shake, and I live in Canyon Lakes. He goes, and just drop a pin and then just create an estimate for it. And then at the end of the day for work, I want you to go and knock on their door and say, hey, I saw that you have a beautiful roof. I saw that you have a beautiful house, but the roof is going to need some attention here in the next couple of years. I already prepared this estimate for you. I just want you to give it to you for budgetary reasons. If you want to use this, great. If you want to hold on to this and call us in a couple of years, we just would love the opportunity. So I go and I'm dropping the pin on my iPad on just 10 cedar shake houses. I get to the last one, I drop it, I go back to the office, I write up the estimates, I print them all out, I have them in the folder, I have them on the top folder there, and I get a call from Dan Easton Construction. He goes, hey, Noah, I have a friend of mine who's looking to get his roof replaced in Canyon Lakes. Would you be interested in calling him? I said, I'm not going to get in it, just deal with him directly. I go, all right. So I call him. He goes, hey, this is Stuart Gale. He goes, you got recommended by Dan Easton. He goes, would love for you to get. I go, yeah, absolutely. Give me your address. And he's giving me his address. And I go, wait a minute. And I get the manila envelope for my thing. And I go, I said, are you home? He goes, yeah. I said, can I be there in 10 minutes? He goes, absolutely. Come on by. I had already had this estimate prepared.
You had the
for
whole
him.
thing ready.
I go to his house and I go, Stuart, you're not going to believe it. I said, I drove by your house this morning and I already have this. There's no way I could prepare this in 10 minutes. I said, I already had this ready for you. And I break it down for him. And he goes, hold on. He goes, I'm going to go cancel my next appointment. Goes in his house, cancels his next appointment, cuts me my deposit. And he goes, I want this shingle. I said, that shingle's not getting, that shingle's not in production this year. I said, is there another shingle? He goes, that's the shingle I want. I waited 30 some years to replace my roof. I don't care waiting another roof. If it's next year, it's next year. That was last year. And that was literally last year. We barely installed his roof 2 months ago.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
And all that came from going to a conference, and people go, well, how many books do you have to read to be successful? How many conferences do you have to go and listen to? How many keynote speakers do you got to go to? Those conferences are just a waste of your time, but little do they know that that's impacted my life. The people that I've met there, the connections that I've made, if it wasn't for them, I don't know that I would be sitting here today with you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's huge. And I can't stress that enough. Like, I don't think the way things are changing and changing so quickly, I don't think being a business owner or learning something about your business, I just don't think it's static. Like, I don't think you go to 4 years of college and then you're like, okay, I'm ready to work in my career now, and I never have to learn anything else. Or you own a business or you're in real estate. Like, it's constantly changing. Now, how do we adapt? How do we use AI? How do we implement that? If you're not going and seeking out the people that are doing this better than anybody else, like, I think you're going to fall behind. And so, yeah, like, I was at one, same as you. I was at one 2 months ago, and I've got four. We run a management system called EOS, and so I've got 4 rocks for next quarter that came out of that conference that are an absolute game changer for our business to take care of next quarter. And so, like, and that was from what conference I just went to. And so, yeah, I think just getting around those people, and they end up becoming impactful in your life. They end up becoming some of your best friends. And they support you and they, like, hold you up. And it's hard to, in your day-to-day business, it's hard to get that, to get that camaraderie. And so I think it's important to, and then they challenge you when you're wrong, too. And they're like, hey, you're making a big mistake, or they'll just be like, why would you say that to your wife? Or why would you, treat your kids like that? And so they're the ones that, keep you grounded, I think. And so I just to seek that out, I think.
Even if it's the investment and the time, and you go, well, I don't have the money, or I'm too busy, and I don't have the time, or my business is like, that's the exact same reason why you have to go out and do those things, man.
It 10x's your results.
For the longest time, I had this. I asked you earlier. I said, what was your biggest pain point? What was the hardest decision you've made in your business in the last couple of years? And one for me was getting rid of a certain person, because that person was so close to me.
Yeah.
And after multiple opportunities and multiple chances, it just wasn't better. And I take extreme ownership of that. And that's another one of our core values, because for the longest time, I was like, he's my friend, I'm going to look the other way. And I'm not going to pretend that I didn't see that. And he would be late. I'm like, oh, he's fine. And I just kept letting that slide and letting that slide until it was too late to correct it. And by
Right.
then I cost us our relationship, because then when I did bring it up, he didn't take it the right way.
Yeah.
And so I miss him. He was like my brother, but because of that, Brandon was able to come on board, and now it's been a blessing. So sometimes blessings are in disguise, but for the longest time, I used to operate in the sense that, man, why can't people understand that personal is personal and business is business? And I told that to my coach one time, and he freaking ripped me a new one, and he was like, I don't ever want to hear you saying that. And I said, what the heck did I say? And he goes, business is personal because you deal with people.
Yeah.
If there's no personal problems, there's nothing to bring into your business. If there's no baby mama drama, if there's no addiction issues, there's nothing to bring into your business.
Yeah.
So you have to help the people. And if you get rid of those problems, there's nothing to bring into your business. So
Yeah.
you have, and so that was just a light switch for me, man. But I've never told you that, and I thought about it the other day. I was gonna text you, and then I was like, "Oh, we have the
I
show."
appreciate
But like, dude, that changed my. We talk about million right turns, a million left turns, and any left turn or right turn could change the. If I didn't make that podcast, and if I didn't invite you, and if I just chose not to listen to that piece of advice about going outside your market to see what you could bring back in 2023 would have been out of business, or I would just be some 5-man crew person.
Oh man,
And
I would have gone out in '06, and like you remember that. I remember the person that invited me to that first one, and his name is Kurt, super important in my life. And he got me to that conference. And I remember the biggest problem I had was that I only had one pair of khakis, and I was worried like people would make fun of me. Like I was like, all I have is one nice pair of khaki pants because I'm working on the farm all the time. And so I went to that conference, man, and I wore those khaki pants all 5 days in a row. I was probably looked like just schmucky. But man, I came back from that and 180'd our business and then never looked back. And I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing wife at home, and she supported those 180 changes, and then she started going to those conferences with me, and so that that helps us a ton. And so I am very, very fortunate and thankful that I have her and supporting those decisions,
that's
because it's not
awesome.
easy. Like,
Yeah.
we come back from these conferences, and I know now you're married as well, and sometimes we come back from those conferences and they must look at us like we're a crazy person, because we tell them like, hey, I'm going to do this and change this and that. And there's some times where it's too much. Like, we are too much. I get it. And so we have these amazing women that say like, okay, let's calm down a little bit and, pick a few of these things that we can implement.
I get off the phone calls because I see Dave once a quarter, but when I'm on a call with him almost weekly and at least monthly on Zoom, and I'll lock my door and then I'll get off his calls and he'll just get me straight. Like, I react to tough coaching, and he
Yes.
knows that.
Yeah.
And so then I'll get off those calls and I'll go outside, and my admins will be like, did you just get off a call with Dave? And I go, how do you know? And they're like, because you're all ramped up and
We
you're
know.
trying to change everything. And it's just like, I'm just like, as he's talking, my brain is going a million miles an hour,
Yeah.
just thinking, how can I change this? No, oh, I remember this. It's just how it is, man. But it's been so awesome, man, to see our relationship from 2021
Yeah.
to where you're at now, both for me and for you. I'm just grateful.
I
And for
appreciate
the
it.
things that you've done for me that
Oh.
you don't know, and your team has done for me. Like, you have thrown so much business our way, man. And
Well, you guys,
You know,
you
you've-
guys provide value. That's like that. Like, I love that's how you coach your guys, and it's not just something you say to your guys. Like, it comes out. I mean, it comes out in like everything you guys do. Like, you guys, do what you say you're gonna do, and you under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
And you guys actually walk the walk, and yeah, you've built a great organization, and I see it every day. So
appreciate
it's
it, man.
awesome.
Are you guys looking for new talent all the time? Are you guys?
Oh yeah, we're always looking for new talent, because I know that's my biggest mistake, because I don't hire fast enough. And so yeah, new talent and new opportunities. And so, like I said, we're actively evaluating West Coast. Our biggest growth mode right now is West Coast property management companies. And so I've made 4 or 5 offers in the last couple of months, and so we're just finding the right fit for our next expansion.
So if there's somebody out there, whether they're in the property management space or
Yep.
looking to be a real estate agent,
Absolutely.
reach out to
just
look for.
go to kenmoreteam.com and shoot me a message, and I would love to network and talk to people about that. And yeah, we're just super excited. Like we're speeding up. We're not slowing down at this point. So
no, well, Lance, I appreciate it. Thanks for being on the show. That concludes the first episode back in 3 years of the Unclouded Podcast. So appreciate it, and stay tuned for the next one, guys.